today I'm going to talk about crisis and leadership. So let's take a look. As a leader, when we have a crisis, we are expected to have a plan for that. When we are talking about a crisis, I mean there is something that we never faced before. As I talk in my journal, number 2, 9/11 was something that we never expected, so that's why we weren't prepared for that. Once leaders recognize a crisis, they can begin to mount a response, but they cannot respond as they would in a routine emergency by following the plans that have been drawn up in advance. They may span a wide range of actions, not just temporary moves, but also adjustments to ongoing organizational practices, which can be beneficial to maintain even after the crisis has passed. Disasters can make or break a leader. Another example of crisis is COVID-19. Some leaders have risen to the challenge, keeping their communities, employees, and students informed, pausing and restarting daily life, and managing the secondary effects of social and economic disruption. One of the most essential elements of crisis leadership is clear and trustworthy communication. Best practices for crisis communication established through years of psychological and organizational research include transparency, honesty, and empathy. During a crisis, leaders must see opportunities everywhere, every day, and make the most of them. They must be open-minded enough to search within conversations and adverse circumstances for possibilities that will help those that they lead. Crisis demands respecting different points of view to broaden your observations and perspectives about the reality that is right in front of you. In times of crisis, leaders sometimes don't trust themselves enough to take the first steps and define their strategies for change. They would rather be held accountable to others' expectations than their own. Those types of leaders lack passion, and it's passion that puts you in a different level of leadership. Honesty and confidence is one of the most important things that a leader needs to do, especially in times of crisis. During a crisis, everybody looks to a leader for the next steps. If a leader projects fear, that fear transmits to everyone else, much like a contagious disease. This is why it's absolutely necessary for a leader to look like they are masters of the situation. But confidence is not the only thing leaders need to display. Honesty is key as well, because if things are not going well, people need to know because they are affected too. That is why it's important for leaders to be realistic. They need to find balance depending on the magnitude of the situation. There are few situations where leaders are supposed to make quick decisions or hard decisions. A crisis is one of them. Leaders need to be able to make decisions on the fly, and in some cases they may need to make hard decisions, the ones that they know are not going to win them any points. In an immediate crisis, a work environment can very quickly develop chaos because all of the emotions running high, with the stress and fear of being at the forefront. It is important for a leader to take control and stop the panic from spreading. In fact, this is often the first thing a leader has to do when news of a crisis breaks. This may involve quickly delegating tasks or simply bringing a room to order. Finally, stay positive is one of those things that is easier said than done. This is not to say that leaders have to be blindly optimistic even when the outcome seems to state otherwise. However, it is important to keep a game face on until the worst of the crisis has passed. The most important thing to remember is that all the crises do pass. A crisis is always an opportunity to acknowledge responsibility, take ownership, and do better.